If you're over 60 and think, I don't need to masturbate anymore, then I'm sorry, but your body might already be breaking down, and you don't even realize it. I'm not here to sugarcoat anything, and I won't tiptoe around this. I'm a urologist. I've spent over 30 years treating thousands of aging men who were once strong, confident, the rock of their families. But then, one by one, they sat across from me, tired eyes, sluggish speech, chronic insomnia, nightly bathroom trips, memory issues, and one devastating thing in common. They had completely stopped caring about their sexual health. They had stopped masturbating. It may sound minor. Some would say, at my age, who even thinks about that anymore? I'm too old, that part of my life is over. But listen closely, this isn't just about sexuality. It's about your prostate, your brain, your immune system, your sleep, your pelvic floor muscles, and most painfully, your sense of identity as a man. I've watched once healthy men fall apart. Afraid to leave the house because of incontinence. Refusing to drive long distances for fear of needing a bathroom. Suffering from restless, broken sleep. Forgetful, confused, losing focus and clarity. Emotionally numb, detached, no longer feeling alive. The worst part? They blamed aging. But no, this was because they had disconnected from their own bodies. You may think this is a taboo topic, something to avoid, but it's the silence, the shame, that has silently stolen the health and dignity of too many older adults. So today I'm going to be honest, direct, and go deep. If you've stopped masturbating after 60, you could be setting yourself up for physical, mental, and emotional decline. And I'll show you exactly how, through science, real patience, and 3 decades of personal experience. Are you ready? If you want to stay sharp, sleep well, feel confident, and live with strength and pride, watch this video until the end. Because what I'm about to share could bring back a part of your body you thought was gone for good. Prostate and urination, the silent breakdown. Let's begin with one of the most overlooked organs after age 60, the prostate. It's small, tucked deep inside the body, and most men barely think about it, until it starts making itself known through frustrating symptoms. Weak urination, frequent nighttime trips to the bathroom, a heavy feeling in the lower belly, or worse, the inability to urinate at all. And what's the real cause behind all of this? A simple reason that most people never consider: the prostate has been frozen in place because you've stopped ejaculating for too long. You may not realize it, but every time you ejaculate, whether through sex or masturbation, your prostate contracts powerfully, flushing out the fluid it produces. That process isn't just about pleasure. It's your body's way of self-cleaning and keeping the system flowing and healthy. When that release stops for an extended period, the fluid starts to build up. And just like any part of the body where waste stagnates, inflammation follows. Swelling, discomfort, and over time, dysfunction. I've seen this story repeat with thousands of older men I've treated. They all start with the same complaints. A weak stream, the feeling that their bladder isn't empty after urinating, waking up 3, 4, even 5 times a night to use the bathroom, having to stand and wait a long time before the flow begins, or a constant sense of pressure in the lower belly. They think it's just part of getting older. But in truth, these are early warning signs that the prostate is no longer being exercised, no longer contracting and cleaning itself regularly. When this continues, the prostate may start to enlarge, pressing on the bladder and urethra. That condition is called benign prostatic hyperplasia, or BPH. It affects nearly half of men over 60 and nearly every man by the time they reach 80, if left unchecked. Even more concerning, large-scale studies have shown that men who ejaculate more frequently, about 21 times or more per month, have a 33% lower risk of developing prostate cancer compared to men who don't. That tells us one important truth: ejaculation isn't just for the young. It's one of the body's strongest natural defenses for older men. I'll never forget a patient of mine around 72 years old. He lived a healthy life, ate well, exercised daily. But every night he woke up 4 or 5 times to pee. All his lab tests came back normal. Nothing seemed obviously wrong. Then I asked a very simple question, one that many are embarrassed to answer: when was the last time you ejaculated? He paused for a long time, then said quietly, "It's been over 10 years. My wife passed and I haven't thought about that part of life since." I started him on a simple routine, gentle, regular self-stimulation just 2 to 3 times a week. Within 3 months, he returned with brighter eyes and a gentle smile. The nighttime urination had reduced drastically. That constant pressure in his lower abdomen? Gone. I didn't think something so small could make me feel this in control again, he said. I share this not to be provocative, but because I want you to understand that you don't need medication. You don't need surgery. And you certainly don't need to be young again. What you need is a consistent, simple habit that keeps your prostate functioning. Giving up masturbation after 60 isn't just about skipping out on a little pleasure. It's about giving up one of your body's key mechanisms to protect your urinary health. So if you're feeling like you're slowly losing control, waking too often at night, straining to pee, or avoiding long trips for fear of not finding a bathroom, ask yourself this: have I been neglecting a part of my body that still desperately needs care? Because sometimes restoring balance doesn't require a pill. It starts with you. Mental clarity and focus, the fading edge. Many men in their 60s or 70s have come to see me with a confused, almost embarrassed look in their eyes. They don't complain about aches or pains. They don't mention intimacy. They just sigh and say, "Doc, these days I walk into a room and forget why I came in. My mind feels foggy. Nothing is sharp anymore. I don't feel like myself." It's a sentence I've heard so often I can almost finish it for them. Most assume it's just part of getting older. But the truth is more complex. What they're experiencing isn't simply aging. It's the result of a long-standing chemical drought in the brain, specifically a lack of dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin, the key neurotransmitters that help keep your mind alert, focused, and emotionally stable. What many people don't know is that sexual activity, even something as simple as masturbation, floods the brain with these critical chemicals. Dopamine gives you motivation and drive. Serotonin calms you, improves sleep, and reduces anxiety. Oxytocin helps you feel connected and safe, even when you're alone. But when you stop all intimate stimulation, especially for long periods, your brain stops receiving those vital chemical surges. Without them, your thoughts begin to slow. Your focus weakens. You forget things. You lose mental sharpness. Each day feels like a quiet fog is settling over your mind, dulling your instincts and stealing your clarity. I call this phenomenon brain fog of aging. But here's the key: it's not inevitable. It's not irreversible. Another major factor is testosterone. This hormone isn't just about libido. It fuels your mental edge, your decisiveness, your memory, your sense of personal power. When intimacy disappears from your life, testosterone levels tend to decline faster. That, in turn, affects your ability to think clearly, remember details, and feel like yourself. Some of my patients used to be teachers, business owners, community leaders. Men who once stood tall, made decisions, and led with confidence. Now, they hesitate to speak up in conversations, they second-guess themselves, they avoid social gatherings out of fear of forgetting something or losing their train of thought. And sadly, they often believe this is just what aging does to everyone. But I want you to hear this clearly: mental clarity and sharpness can absolutely be preserved. Your brain still needs fuel, stimulation, and hormonal balance. And one of the simplest ways to keep those systems active is through gentle, regular sexual stimulation. You don't need to perform like you did at 30. You simply need to keep the brain's chemistry flowing, the hormone levels balanced, and the connection between your mind and body alive. Because when you disconnect for too long, you're not just losing memories, you're losing your edge. That spark in your eye, that confidence in your tone, that quickness of thought that once defined you, those things begin to fade. But here's the hope: they don't have to. Sometimes, reclaiming your mental clarity doesn't start with a supplement or a puzzle book. Sometimes, it begins by reconnecting with your body, reminding it to feel again, release again, and come back online. Because your mind hasn't given up on you. It's just waiting for you to give it what it needs. Depression and emotional numbness. When you feel nothing anymore. There's a kind of depression that's especially common in older adults. It doesn't look like what you see on TV. No tears, no dramatic breakdowns. It arrives quietly, silently. And the most dangerous part is, many people don't even realize it's happening to them. One patient once told me, "I don't feel sad. I don't feel happy. I'm not angry, but I'm not at peace either. I just don't feel anything at all. That's when I knew something was deeply wrong. Because when your body can no longer release emotion, when there's a deep emptiness inside and you can't even name what you're feeling, that's not calmness. It's a warning sign of depression. And one of the most overlooked causes is that people have stopped connecting with their own bodies. Many older men assume that once their sex life is over, everything else just winds down naturally. But what they don't realize is that the body has built-in systems to help stabilize your mental health. And one of the most important is the release of oxytocin and endorphins during climax. These are your body's natural anti-anxiety chemicals. They help you feel warm, connected, relaxed, and emotionally alive. When you stop all physical self-stimulation, those chemicals start to vanish. Without oxytocin, there's no inner connection, no emotional depth. You lose interest in the things that once brought you joy. You withdraw from people. You stop initiating conversation. Slowly, and without even noticing, you drift into isolation, both physically and emotionally. You might not feel sad. In fact, you may think you've moved beyond sadness. But what you're left with is worse. A dull emptiness, a lack of feeling altogether. And that's not aging. That's disconnection. The danger is, most people don't recognize it as depression. They just think, this must be what getting older feels like. But in reality, it's the result of a body that's no longer being touched, a mind no longer being stimulated, a soul no longer being acknowledged. I've seen this firsthand. One man lost his wife in his mid-60s. He stopped eating well, gave up his morning walks, and quit going to his chess club. "I'm not sad," he said. "I just feel like I'm fading." When I gently suggested he try reconnecting with his body again, alone, quietly, without expectation, he was hesitant. But after some time he came back and told me something I'll never forget. "I feel alive again. Not because of the pleasure, but because I remembered what it feels like to exist." That's the message I want you to take away from this. Touching your body isn't just about satisfaction. It's about recognizing that you are still here, that you still have feelings, that your existence still matters. Silence can kill emotion. Disconnection from your body can make you forget who you are. But the good news is, it's reversible. You can bring yourself back online. You can feel again. You can return to yourself. And it might all begin with one small act. Reaching out, not to anyone else but to yourself. Chronic insomnia, because you no longer let your body relax. There's something rarely mentioned when people talk about sleep problems in old age. Your body doesn't fall asleep just because the lights are off and you're lying in bed. It needs to be signaled that it's safe to relax, to let go. One of the body's most powerful natural signals for deep rest is orgasm. Each time you reach climax, whether through intimacy or self-stimulation, your body releases a near-perfect blend of calming chemicals: oxytocin, prolactin, endorphins. These hormones ease your nervous system, relax your muscles, slow your breathing, and gently guide your mind into a peaceful state. You may recall, in your younger years, that drowsy, heavy feeling that followed intimacy. That wasn't random. It was your biology at work. A built-in off switch to help you drift into deep, healing sleep. But when you completely stop stimulating your body, especially for long stretches of time, that switch disappears. You might lie down, close your eyes, but your mind stays tense. Thoughts race. Memories blur. Your heartbeat stays elevated. Your breath shallow. You never truly fall asleep. You simply exist in a state of restlessness until morning. I once had a patient in his mid-60s who had been struggling with poor sleep for over 6 months. He told me, "I fall asleep at first, but then I'm wide awake at 2 a.m. staring at the ceiling, waiting for the sun." We ran all the usual tests. His heart, lungs, blood work, all normal. But when I gently asked, "When was the last time you were physically intimate, even with yourself?" he looked down and said, "It's been years." Like so many others, his body had forgotten how to let go. It had lost the ability to naturally shift from stress to rest, because it was no longer releasing the very hormones designed to help him do that. He had forgotten what it felt like to fully exhale, to feel his limbs soften, to let his brain float into sleep after a wave of release. Sleep loss doesn't just make you tired. It brings with it an entire chain reaction of harm: weakened memory, reduced immune function, increased inflammation, heart problems, blood pressure instability, and a noticeable loss of enthusiasm for life. You start to withdraw from conversations. You lose the energy to walk. You become irritable, sensitive, reactive. Worst of all, you begin to accept that this is just what getting old feels like. But let me ask you something. When was the last time you allowed your body to fully relax? Not with medication, not with music, but through your own natural rhythm? You don't need to become someone else. You don't need to chase performance. What you need is to return to yourself, to learn how to listen again, to give your body permission to soften, unwind, and reset, just like it was built to do. Because sometimes the solution to sleepless nights isn't a sleeping pill. It's one small moment of reconnection, a simple act that reminds your body, it's okay to rest now. Weakened pelvic floor and blood circulation. When the body loses its foundation, our body is like a building. And for any building to stay upright, its foundation must be strong. For us, that foundation is the pelvic floor. The pelvic floor is a group of muscles located at the base of your pelvis. It supports the bladder, the large intestine, and the reproductive organs. But here's something most people don't realize. Like any other muscle in the body, if it's not used regularly, it weakens. And one of the most natural and effective ways to keep the pelvic floor active is through sexual activity, especially stimulation and orgasm. During climax, the pelvic floor muscles contract rhythmically. It's a built-in workout, gentle, consistent, and vital. This movement helps improve blood circulation, keeps nerves responsive, and maintains the strength and elasticity of the entire region. But when you stop stimulating this area altogether, things begin to deteriorate. The muscles stop contracting. Blood flow slows down. Nerves become dull. Tissue becomes less responsive. Over time, your physical foundation begins to give way. At first, it may seem minor. Slight urine leaks when you laugh or sneeze, a bit of pressure in your lower back after standing too long, occasional constipation. But as the months and years pass, these symptoms can grow worse. Nighttime urination, full incontinence, pelvic pain, and loss of sexual function. I once treated a retired physician in his 70s who was once very healthy. He walked every day, stayed mentally sharp, and had an active social life. But he began experiencing back pain, frequent leaks, and a loss of confidence when standing for long periods. "It feels like my foundation is slowly falling apart," he told me. After ruling out structural and neurological causes, we discovered that his pelvic floor had weakened significantly, not due to aging alone, but because he had stopped all forms of intimate stimulation for over a decade. A weakened pelvic floor doesn't just affect urination or intimacy. It also impacts balance, posture, and lower body strength. And for seniors, that's especially dangerous, because this leads to increased risk of falling, which is one of the leading indirect causes of death in people over 70. On top of that, when blood no longer flows efficiently to the pelvic region, sexual function declines too. For men, this often shows up as erectile issues, lack of sensation, or pain. For women, it can mean dryness, discomfort, and a complete loss of interest in physical intimacy. Many people begin avoiding any physical closeness. Then they avoid going out in public. They begin organizing their lives around proximity to a restroom. They withdraw from their communities. And eventually their mental health starts to fade too. But the most heartbreaking part? Most of them have no idea why it's happening. They just assume it's old age, that it's too late. But the truth is, if guided properly, if given the right kind of stimulation and attention, this entire region of the body can be strengthened and revitalized, even in your 70s, 80s, or beyond. Your body hasn't given up on you. It's simply waiting for you to remember how to care for it. And sometimes, the first step, the most powerful one, is reconnecting with yourself in the most basic personal way. Weakened immunity, when the body stops defending itself. We often assume that a weaker immune system is just a natural part of aging. But what few people realize is that there's a silent factor, often overlooked, that deeply affects your body's ability to protect itself. The moment you stop engaging with your own physical intimacy. You may not have heard this before, but every time you reach orgasm, whether through sex or masturbation, your body produces a significant increase in a powerful antibody called IgA, immunoglobulin A. This is one of the immune system's first lines of defense, helping you fight off viruses, bacteria, and other invaders, especially in your respiratory and digestive systems. At the same time, the body also releases positive hormones like oxytocin, dopamine, and endorphins. These don't just improve your mood, they also reduce inflammation, boost circulation, and promote natural healing. However, when you stop stimulating your body entirely, this natural boost disappears. Your immune system slows down. Your body becomes more prone to common illnesses like colds, sore throats, lingering coughs, or chronic fatigue. Even small wounds take longer to heal. What used to be a one-day flu now takes you down for a full week, or longer. I remember a man in his early 60s who came to see me one winter after getting sick 3 times in a row. He looked pale and exhausted. "I used to bounce back in a day or two," he told me, "but now every little illness knocks me out for weeks." We ran all the standard tests. Nothing alarming came up. Then I asked him gently, "Have you been physically intimate at all? Even just with yourself?" He paused, then admitted, "No. Not since my wife passed. I just didn't think it mattered anymore." I explained to him what I'll share with you now. Physical intimacy isn't just about pleasure. It's about keeping your immune system alive and responsive. It's a form of self-maintenance, of giving your body what it naturally needs to continue defending you. I encouraged him to try reconnecting with himself, slowly, gently, with no pressure or guilt. Just to remind his body what it feels like to be alive and cared for. 3 months later, he returned looking healthier. His energy had improved. He hadn't been sick again. "I don't know how to explain it," he said, "but I feel like my body is working with me again, not against me." That isn't magic. That's biology. That's your body responding to the message, "I'm still here. I still care. I still want to thrive." This is the truth society often ignores. That physical connection with yourself, even in old age, isn't selfish or shameful. It's an act of wellness, of defense, of life. When you stop touching your body, when you silence that instinct, your immune system doesn't judge you. It just slows down. It withdraws support. It waits. But when you return to yourself, even in the smallest way, your entire system begins to wake up again. And sometimes that's all it takes. Loss of ownership and self-worth. When you no longer feel like yourself. One of the saddest things I've ever witnessed in older adults isn't illness. It isn't weakness. It's when someone quietly says, "I don't feel like I live in this body anymore." That sentence doesn't come from physical pain. It comes from a quiet fracture, the slow, unnoticed disconnection between mind and body. A kind of emotional drift that creeps in when someone stops doing one simple thing. Touching their own body. Not just sexually, but meaningfully, gently, intentionally. Because when you stop touching yourself, even in private, even with care, the brain starts to disconnect from those parts of your body. The nervous system stops sending signals. The mind loses familiarity. And eventually, you stop feeling like you belong in your own skin. The distance starts small. You stop brushing your hair with care. You no longer think about what you wear. You avoid mirrors. You eat to get full, not to nourish. And it's not because you're lazy or careless. It's because deep down, you've forgotten what it feels like to be someone worth taking care of. I once asked an older man, "Do you still feel like a man?" He looked at his hands and said softly, "I'm not sure anymore." That answer broke my heart, not because he had lost his masculinity, but because he had lost his identity. The sense of presence, of ownership, of truly being in his body. What people often forget is this. Every time you touch your body, even a simple act of self-care, it's a message that says, "I'm still here. I still matter." Self-touch isn't about lust. It's about connection. It's how the brain and the body remember each other. It's how we remind ourselves, "I haven't disappeared. I haven't been erased." You see, when older adults stop caring for themselves, it's not always depression or decline. Often it's the result of this long, quiet disconnection. A belief that they've become invisible, unimportant, unnecessary. But it doesn't have to be that way. Because no one is too old to reconnect. No one is too far gone to remember themselves. You don't need anyone else to validate that truth. You just need a moment, a breath, a touch. Place your hand gently over your heart or your chest or wherever you feel tension. Close your eyes and say to yourself, even silently, I am still here. Because that, more than anything, is the beginning of healing, of reclaiming your life, your body, your worth. And it's never too late. You've walked with me through a difficult but essential journey. We've looked straight into a topic that many shy away from, to uncover what really happens when a man, once strong and full of life, stops connecting with his own body. Let's take a moment to recap the 7 serious consequences of giving up self-intimacy. You lose your prostate health, and with it, the freedom to urinate with ease and sleep peacefully through the night. You lose your mental sharpness. Your brain stops being nourished and memory and focus begin to fade. You lose emotional clarity. The joy, the sadness, the feeling of being alive is slowly replaced by numbness. You lose sleep. Your body forgets how to relax and your nights become long and restless. You lose your physical foundation. Weakened pelvic floor muscles lead to falls, imbalance, and dependency. You lose immune strength. Illness comes more often, recovery takes longer, and your body stops protecting you like it used to. And perhaps most heartbreaking, you lose your sense of self. You stop feeling worthy of care, of attention, of existing as a full human being. But what I want you to hold on to more than anything is this. You can get it all back. Not through medication. Not by turning back time. But through something simple, quiet, and completely within your control. Reconnecting with your body. Don't let your body grow old in silence. Don't let yourself disappear a little more each day. You are still alive, and you deserve to feel that life. Start gently. Not out of lust. Not out of longing for the past. But out of necessity. For your mind, your sleep, your strength, your dignity. Touch yourself. To remind yourself that you are still here. Still vibrant. Still whole. If this message resonated with you, leave a 1 in the comments to let me know you're here, that you heard this, that you're still present. If you're not ready, that's okay too. Leave a 0. I read every comment. Share this video with a friend. They might be silently struggling with the same pain and waiting for someone to say what they couldn't. And don't forget, subscribe to Message for the Elderly, so you don't miss the next video that helps you live stronger, age with pride, and reconnect with the most important person in your life, yourself.